Avengers Endgame hits theaters around the world this year, and we simply can't wait for it. We've all seen the cast: Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark, Chris Hemsworth's Thor, Chris Evans' Steve Rogers, and all the other MCU stars we'd expect in such an epic ensemble movie. But could it be that the most important hero in the fourth Avengers offering will actually be a much lesser known and far more obscure character? That is what one theory suggests might be the case, and we'll be telling you why that's the case, and indeed who the obscure character in question is in this video. Back in 2018, the Mad Titan Thanos left the Marvel Cinematic Universe devastated and in tatters. After 6 years of being built up as the big bad of the franchise, following his first appearance in the mid-credits scene of the first Avengers movie, when he was actually played by Damien Poitier, Josh Brolin's character collected all 6 Infinity Stones, causing devastation along the way, then simply snapped his fingers and wiped out 50% of all life across the cosmos. Several prominent MCU characters fell victim to the prune-chinned despot's merciless action, which is now known as the Decimation. The likes of Spider-Man, Black Panther, Bucky Barnes, Doctor Strange, Star-Lord, Drax, Mantis, Scarlet Witch, and Groot turned to dust, to name but a few. And it's going to take something particularly special to undo what happened and make everything okay again. There are, of course, some rather obvious ideas regarding what might happen in the movie. Some people are predicting that Captain America will make a typically heroic sacrifice to ensure the well-being of the MCU going forward, bringing his story in the franchise full circle, after he previously sacrificed himself in heroic fashion to prevent Hydra's bombs landing in various major American cities in his first solo movie. Others are assuming that Iron Man, the MCU's flagship character for more than a decade, will be the one to undo Thanos' actions, perhaps by donning an Infinity Gauntlet of his own and sacrificing his fragile human body by executing another finger snap to bring the victims of the Decimation back to life. Many believe that Scott Lang might lead the heroes of the MCU into the quantum realm in order for them to travel back in time and prevent Thanos from ever gathering the Infinity Stones in the first place. There are others who believe Thor will make amends for his failed attempt at killing Thanos in last year's Avengers Infinity War by embedding Stormbreaker firmly into the Mad Titan's head this time around. Of course, Captain Marvel, who's generally expected to be the most powerful hero the MCU has ever seen, might just flat out overpower Thanos to defeat the purple-skinned villain once and for all. Some people even think that Doctor Strange might be key, even though he turned to dust in Avengers Infinity War, either because he faked his own death to go about his business in secret, or because he contacted his past self before he perished in order to get some Thanos-defeating plans underway years before the Infinity War ever happened. And the likes of Clint Barton, the Hulk, and Gamora have also been touted as the potential MVPs of Avengers Endgame. But the truth is, at this point, almost anything is on the table with regards to the highly anticipated superhero installment, and some Marvel movie enthusiasts are taking some, let's call them, creative liberties with regards to their theories. One extremely out there theory in particular has caught our eye, as it takes a seemingly trivial aspect of the Avengers Endgame trailer and turns it into something that could be extremely important in the movie itself. In the trailer, Chris Evans' Steve Rogers is holding the same compass he was in possession of in his first solo movie, 2011's Captain America: First Avenger. You remember the one? It's a compass/locket that has a picture of Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter in it. And when Rogers was about to crash the Red Skull's aircraft at the movie's climax, he took it out and placed it on the vehicle's dash, so that the last thing he saw before he died was the face of the only woman he ever loved. Well, in addition to the fact that the last time we saw the compass was when Rogers thought he was going to die, which some people have pointed out is very ominous going into Avengers Endgame, eagle-eyed fans have also noticed something else in the trailer. The compass was pointing northeast, and assuming Rogers and the Avengers are back in their base in upstate New York, a rather intriguing Marvel location can be found in a northeasterly direction from there. And if the Avengers head that way, they could encounter an obscure Marvel character whose powers could be very important in the fight back against Thanos. The place we're referring to is called Svalbard, and the character they would find there is a guy called Adam Roderick. In the Marvel Comics, Svalbard is a Norwegian archipelago in the Arctic Ocean. It's situated north of mainland Europe and is about midway between continental Norway and the North Pole. Roderick's powers are that if he says or thinks it, it can become a reality. Essentially, he can alter the very fabric of reality itself on a whim, as well as being able to influence the actions of other people. And he can teleport anywhere he wants to boot. He's an extremely powerful guy. With that in mind, there are all kinds of potential applications for his amazing abilities. He could, for example, control Thanos into undoing the decimation himself. He could teleport into the quantum realm to help the MCU's heroes travel through time to prevent the decimation from ever happening in the first place. He could increase the power levels of the surviving MCU heroes to give them a boost in their efforts against Thanos. He could simply alter reality so that the victims of the decimation come back to life. And there are countless other things he could potentially do to help. For those who might not have heard of Adam Roderick, let us tell you more about him. He's a member of the Inhumans, whose powers were activated by the Terrigen Mists. He's an extremely underwhelming and unassuming looking character who was first seen in a Marvel comic in December of 2015, in the issue Karnak #1, when Magister Karnak rescued him after he was seemingly kidnapped by a subgroup of the evil AIM, an organization that we already know exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Guy Pearce's Aldrich Killian as its founder, so that kidnapping might actually have already happened off-screen, which could be important. After Karnak rescued Roderick at the behest of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents Phil Coulson and Gemma Simmons, who, as we know, also exist in the MCU, the Inhuman revealed that he wasn't actually kidnapped and that he willingly went along with AIM in order for them to assist him in discovering his true self, which in simple terms meant that they helped him to tap into his inhuman powers, namely being able to essentially alter the very reality around him. Even amongst all of the crazy theories regarding how the Avengers could potentially defeat Thanos in Avengers Endgame, it goes without saying that this is a whole new level of weird. Comic book movies rarely rely on little-known characters to save the day, especially when there are a plethora of iconic ones already present. But Endgame promises to be different and surprising, so who knows what could happen in it? The words of director Joe Russo seem to confirm that we might be surprised by what we see in Endgame. Russo said, "Whether we top Infinity War or not, I don't know, but we try to tell the best story we can with these characters. This is bringing to a close the first decade of stories. I think that alone has a dramatic power to it. I don't think there are any comics that correlate to it. I think we're in pretty fresh territory with it. If anything, I think it's interesting after to go back and look at some of the Marvel films and view them through a different lens. But I can't think of any comics in particular that would have value." Russo continued by saying, "Our jobs, as we said a million times, is to tell the story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not to direct adaptations of the comics because we're comic book fans. I have no interest as a director in telling a story that's already been told. If I know all the events story as they're going to happen, then what's the point of going to the film? We want to keep surprising audiences and continue the story that started with Iron Man 1 a decade ago. That seems like a pretty clear message to us. Expect the unexpected. But could the events of Endgame really be this surprising and obscure? One obvious major problem is the fact that Roderick is an Inhuman. Now, we all know Marvel Studios had an Inhumans movie planned for Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it never ended up happening. The concept of Inhumans was ultimately introduced to the MCU in the second season of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV series back in 2015, and we've since had a spin-off TV show based on the race. And given that the supposedly interconnected movies and TV shows are actually very much separate from each other, having an Inhuman play such an important part in a pivotal MCU movie seems extremely unlikely. That being said, there are definitely ways around it. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have been depicted as both mutants and Inhumans in the comic books, yet they have both appeared in MCU movies. The way in which Marvel Studios got around that was by having them receive their powers in a completely different way to the comics. Wanda and Pietro Maximoff were ordinary Sokovian human beings when they were experimented on, using Loki's scepter, which of course was revealed to house the Mind Infinity Stone by Hydra's Baron Wolfgang von Strucker. It is therefore extremely possible that a character like Adam Roderick could have received his powers in a similar way, which would be particularly suitable if he was utilized in a role that saw him countering the actions of Thanos using the Infinity Stones. In Avengers Infinity War, Wanda Maximoff already proved that a character who gained her powers courtesy of one single Infinity Stone was capable of temporarily holding her own against Thanos while he was wielding all 6. Therefore, should Adam Roderick be introduced as a character who's even more powerful than Wanda, and whose abilities came courtesy of the Mind Stone, there's every chance he could be the key to reversing what Thanos did with the completed Infinity Gauntlet. Another potential problem of Marvel Studios using Adam Roderick to defeat Thanos, however, could come in the form of a massive fan backlash. There's been an 11-year build-up to Avengers Endgame, and by the time the movie comes around, that build-up will have included no less than 21 movies. Fans have built rapport with a huge number of their favorite characters in that time. The likes of Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, Chris Evans' Captain America, Chris Hemsworth's Thor, Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, and Bradley Cooper's Rocket are bona fide pop culture icons. And for a little-known character like Adam Roderick to emerge, seemingly out of nowhere, and steal the spotlight from those guys would undoubtedly be a hard pill to swallow for some people. Marvel Studios aren't averse to rocking the boat, though, both on and off the screen, so it's definitely not the kind of thing anyone should be completely ruling out before Endgame is released. From the twisted presentation of the Mandarin in Iron Man 3 and the replacing of Edward Norton with Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, to the sacking of Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn, and the heartbreaking ending to Avengers Infinity War, controversy is never far away from the MCU. So don't be too shocked if Adam Roderick, or a character as seemingly minor as he is, plays a huge role in Avengers Endgame, as unlikely as it may seem right now. In a world in which Hollywood is often accused of lacking original ideas, it would surely be hypocritical for fans to reprehend Marvel Studios for trying something new. That being said, in an ideal world, if indeed Adam Roderick is introduced in Avengers Endgame, it would probably be a better idea to have him simply assist the likes of Tony Stark and Steve Rogers in their fight back against Thanos, rather than have him being the outright MVP and overshadowing them by saving the universe by himself. Regardless of what happens with regards to Roderick in Avengers Endgame, if indeed anything does, given how outlandish the very idea of it is, and regardless of what you might think of the idea, it's certainly an intriguing prospect that he could just appear out of nowhere and play such an important part in such an epic culmination of a movie. In the meantime, while you think about what might happen in Avengers Endgame, we'll be looking forward to what will undoubtedly be an amazing cinematic experience, whether this somewhat bizarre theory turns out to be true or not. What do you think of this theory? Will Adam Roderick be an important character in Avengers Endgame? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to ScreenRant for more great videos just like this one. Over and out.